So I have a serious question, like what makes a person believe that their belief is the correct belief over someone else's belief? Like when you think about history and you have all these people so confident within their beliefs, how can you confidently say that your belief is the one and only belief that is the right belief and everyone else's belief is demonic? That I personally just don't understand. And before I get started on this video and talking about B.Simone, I just want to make it really clear to people that I'm not here to pin religion against spirituality or spirituality against religion. In my opinion, as long as you believe that there is a higher source, which most of us know to be God, and I'm going to emphasize the most high God because I've came to the realization that people use the word God and Lord and like they don't be referring to the same God that other people be referring to. So I'm just making it very clear, the most high God, okay? The good God. Because like I said, people be using that word God and they be worshiping something else. So I'm not talking about that. As long as your belief in the Most High God keeps you upright, you're treating yourself right, you're treating others right with kindness and respect, and most importantly, you're growing as an individual, I feel like that's all that should matter. But I will definitely acknowledge that there are different types of spiritual and religious people, and I feel like people really need to understand that there is duality in literally everything. Like there is good and there's bad in everything. Just like there's good people in both communities, but there are also grifters and scammers in both communities. People who are looking to take advantage of people and manipulate people who are trying to seek answers. And to be completely honest, if I had any criticism that I would give, is not even the practice itself, it's more so the people who practice it. Every time I think about religion or spirituality, the common thing that I find that drives people away from certain belief systems are the intentions that people are putting behind the way that they're doing things. It's not necessarily the purpose or the idea of the religion or the spiritual practice. It's more so how people are corrupting it with their bad behavior and just their negativity and the intentions that they are putting behind it. It's always intentions that should be focused on, but I feel like people have this idea of if it's not what I practice, then it's automatically demonized, when it's like, no, you should be demonized something based off of the intention behind it. The reality is there are people who practice religion and spirituality who have very bad, evil, and just very uneasy spirits. In my opinion, life is spiritual. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So I think it's really important to just be discerning about who and what you're dealing with. Just like how, in my opinion, for people to say that they're religious but they're not spiritual, to me it doesn't make sense, because I feel like life is spiritual. Like you should have spiritual insight, because we're not just here just living life. Like there's also a spiritual side to things. So for you to be religious, I feel like you should also have knowledge on spirituality and just the spirit realm, because I feel like, well, what connecting are you really doing? So like I said, I feel like it's so important for you to be discerning, because I realize that people are blindly following without really having that connection. So say for example, you have a person that's smiling in your face, but their energy is reading something completely different. You know that there's animosity there, or like they have ill intentions towards you. You should be able to spiritually discern that, to understand that what you are seeing with your physical eyes is not what is. That smile is not what really is. So that is what I mean when I say I feel like it's really important for everyone to have a sense of spiritual backing and just understanding, because life is spiritual. Just because you're seeing something with your eyes in one way doesn't mean that that's what is. Like you have to be able to dig a little deeper and to see through the illusion of what's being presented to you, because you have a deeper understanding of what actually is. Basically, that's like you being able to read the person's energy, to see the spirit that they're operating out of, basically go into the vibe that you're picking up off of the person. And your gut feeling, your intuition is what would drive you to even be able to recognize that what they're presenting to you is not what is. Just so you guys have an understanding of my commentary, to really understand that I'm looking at this from various different perspectives and I'm not just operating from a fixed mindset. Like I have a very open mind, so that is where my commentary is coming from. First, I'm going to discuss the different types of religious people. So there are religious people who follow their religion to the best of their ability because they have true faith. There are also religious people who have a very unhealthy fear-based relationship with God and feel like if they don't practice this a certain way or if they don't do this, then they're gonna go to hell. And I think this is unhealthy because it's not that they're doing things out of love for God, but it's more so out of their fear for God, because they fear the consequences of not doing things. And I kind of look at it as like being a religious people pleaser. Like, you're doing things not because it's genuinely in your heart to do it, but you're doing it because you're almost trying to like rack up these brownie points so that you're not on God's bad side. I hope y'all get what I'm trying to say. Like, it's not coming from a place of they're truly in connection with God. It's coming from a place of fear, and because people have basically like made them feel like if you don't do this, then this is gonna happen to you. And this is just something that I've observed within the Islamic religion, but also in various different religions. Like, a lot of people, when they would talk to me just about their journey and stuff like that, it kind of comes across very like fear and, you know, not from a place of love. And it kind of goes into like when I would have conversations with people about parenting, people have this idea of, oh, they want their kids to respect them, but like they want them to be afraid of them. And I always say, like, I get that aspect, but I also feel like if you want to do it the right way, in my opinion, that respect will only last as long as the person fears you. But let's say if they don't fear you anymore, they won't have that respect for you that you want for them to have. Or I feel like they'll show up in an upright way just because they fear the consequences. But if you're not around, they're going to be sneaky. Versus, I always have the perspective of, if I have kids, I want them to respect me out of love. And that way I know, like, even when I'm not around, you're going to still maintain that respect because it's coming from a place of love. It's not coming from a place of fear. Of course, I feel like with respect, you know, like there is a level of fear there. But if your way of getting them to submit to you is through fear, I feel like that's not going to last as long as you may want it. So yeah, that's just something that I noticed with some religious people. Their relationship with God is not from love. It's from a place of fear. Also, there are religious people who pick and choose what they want to abide by, and then they just do whatever they want based off of how they feel. Then there are those religious people who just blindly follow their religion without really having a true understanding and relationship with God, but they just claim themselves to be a part of a particular religion because that's what's normal, that's what they grew up doing. So it's just like, hey, yeah, like if somebody asks them, then this is what they are. But there isn't really like a true genuine connection there. There are also religious people who follow certain religions because that's what they feel is expected of them, because that's what they were born into, and because that's what their family commonly practices. But it's not because they made like an intentional conscious decision in the route that they're going in, but they are afraid to like almost step out of line. So it's just like, you know what, let me just blend in because that's what everyone else is believing in. But it's not because they have like a genuine connection there. So I noticed there are a lot of people that way, and it's like you're crippling yourself by being in that position, because if you know something doesn't resonate with you, why force yourself to be a part of it just to please other people? You know, it's your journey. So that's another thing, because if you're just following something just because it's what's expected of you, how do you expect to really connect and grow and evolve in your faith with God? Then there are those who appear to be religious, but in reality they're just wolves in sheep's clothing, but they use religion as a way to mask themselves and hide behind their wrongdoings. And trust me, there are a lot of religious people who are really like demons in disguise, but they try to paint themselves out to be like this holier than thou person. Like, we've seen a lot being exposed on social media, but also even if it's people you know in real life, like some people will really call themselves to be religious, but it's like it don't give that. Like, you know, it don't give that. Even stories that you hear about like pastors or just people from like different religions and like the crazy stuff they be doing, but it's like, how do you claim to be in the position that you're in yet you're doing crazy stuff? Like, I've heard things about popes and I'm just like, but see, the popes, that's a whole nother thing, because they be giving demonic themselves too, but a lot of people are not ready to hear that. I'm not here to demonize anybody, but I'm just saying in this video, if you do a lot of research on history, then you will really start to unpack a lot of things, and you will realize that a lot of what is presented to be one way, it really don't even be like that. Then there are those religious people who are super judgmental, closed-minded, and just rigid, and they believe that their belief is the only correct belief and every other belief is just not the right way. And everyone who believes in the same God, might I add, but it's just from a different religion or with a different understanding, that they're just gonna burn in hell because it's not the same religion that they believe in. Like, that's just one thing I never understood. Then there are those religious people that are super self-righteous, super judgmental, super egotistical, and also honestly some of them be giving real narcissistic, and they feel like they're like above other people. They put themselves on this pedestal, and oftentimes I be finding that sometimes they be like using religion as a way to like manipulate people into getting their way, or try to like gaslight people through using religion. Trust me, I've heard of so many different stories, and I've actually witnessed these things happen to people like around me. And I'm not a Christian, but I'm not gonna lie, I be so confused when I hear people call Jesus Lord and God, because isn't Jesus supposed to be the child of God, right? Yet it seems like there are so many people confused worshiping a prophet as God. Isn't that idolatry? And isn't idolatry a sin? Like, it's one thing to pay respect towards a person, but it be given like some of y'all be worshiping like that's God, and I be so confused, honestly. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Like, Jesus is supposed to be God's son, but people be referring to Jesus as God, and I really be so confused. Listen, I'm not here to judge anybody, but I'm just saying sometimes some religious folk that be real strict in their religion, the stuff that they be saying and the beliefs that they be having, it really just doesn't make sense to me, which is why it's like, listen, when people believe what they believe, just leave them alone, because sometimes I'm telling you, it's a lot of confused people out here. And now to move on to the spiritual people. There are people who follow spirituality because it's trendy, because they feel like they want to fit a certain aesthetic, or even like the hippie druggies and all of that stuff. So that's like one group. Then there are those spiritual people who love to get their ears tickled and they don't want to hear nothing but positivity. They're real quick to accept it. But if something negative were to come up that's meant to hold them accountable or just challenge their limitations, they don't want to hear it and they're quick to reject it. Then there are those that are genuinely seeking enlightenment with the intention to just genuinely grow as a person and reach their highest level of consciousness. So these are the people who are willing to do the self-work, also known as shadow work, in order to grow as a person as they navigate just the lessons of life while they're existing on this earth. Then there are those who connect with the elements of the earth in order to heal and to protect, usually through connecting through God. Then there are those who have absolutely no boundaries at all, and they just are completely off on the deep end. They have a bad spirit of deception, manipulation, and just jealousy, wanting to harm people and tamper with people's free will. And to be honest, those are the spiritual folks that I would stay completely far away from, because they be on the bad and toxic end of spirituality. Like, they need to really go pray to God, because God don't operate out of that type of energy. Like, God don't even move like that. That's something else. That's very demonic. Like, you need to go pray to God for real and go seek deliverance. Then there are those egotistical and self-righteous spiritual people who feel like they are God. Like, they don't feel like there's nothing above them, and they feel like they're so far up on a pedestal that everyone is beneath them and that they are God, and they believe that they should be worshipped. Like, it's one thing to come to an understanding that we are all fragments of God and God is within us at all times, but it's like when you operate from a space of, nah, I am God and there's nothing above me, I think, you know, you're a little sick. Basically, these are people who tend to develop spiritual egos, and that's not what spirituality is about at all. And to be honest, I could have added more to these lists, but I gave my perspective just to emphasize that I don't think the practices are the problem. I think the people are the problem and their corrupt behavior, because honestly, at the end of the day, I feel like the goal should be to build a respectful relationship with the highest source, and that's God. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, if you believe one thing and you believe the other thing and y'all fighting about it, to me it just really doesn't make sense. If you're connecting and you're connecting, then I feel like that's all that matters. Now, to get into this whole B.Simone situation, honestly, the girl, she I don't know. And of course, I don't know her faith walk, so I'm not trying to project onto her. But one thing that I would say I'm noticing is like, it kind of seemed like her decisions and what she does is based off of if she can get a man or not. And I noticed that a lot of women tend to dive deep into their spiritual practices with a man as the goal in mind. And I just feel like it shouldn't be that way. Like when she was practicing spirituality, first of all, she became rich off of that because she was selling her manifestation journal. And then also she talks about how she carried a rose quartz stone in her bra for 12 years with the intention to manifest a man. And it's like that stone is meant to project and to enhance self-love. You are operating in desperate energy, so it counters what the stone is meant for. But I also feel like that's exactly what I mean when it comes to spirituality. A lot of people follow that path because they have an intention of trying to receive something, and because in their mind it's just like, oh well, I can manifest. And it's like, it's not just about gaining material things and to come into connections with people. Like the whole purpose of spirituality is to learn lessons in life and to evolve from them. So if B.Simone is carrying a rose quartz with the intention of, oh, you know, like I'm gonna gain a man, but she's operating out of very desperate energy. Because let's be honest, around that time, B.Simone was giving very desperate for the baby. Like everything was the baby. And it's like, girl, like you are doing a lot. Like it was it was honestly crazy. I'm like, damn, like I've never seen a grown woman act like this. And then you're doing it on the internet. Like that's embarrassing. You get what I'm saying? So it's like you're operating out of desperate energy, yet you're trying to manifest a man. It doesn't work that way. And even if she were to attract a man based off of the energy that she's in, you're going to attract a karmic person. You're moving desperately. So it's like, are you even operating from a genuine space of self-love to really discern and be intentional about who you're allowing into your life? Because for her to be desiring the baby so much, he was giving very low quality, especially around that time. We seen everything that happened with Danny Lay, and he dragged that girl through the mud. He was still messing with his baby mama Mimi. Like it was just a lot of chaos going on. So the fact that he was a person that she was desiring within that time period, that wouldn't have been a good mix. You get what I'm saying? She would have been attracting something very toxic and very unhealthy, but that's because that's what she felt like she deserved, you know? So it's like her energy wasn't even in alignment with something positive if she were even to obtain that. And that's what spirituality is about. It's about evolving to get to a better space. And those are the lessons that you would have to learn within spirituality. But now all of a sudden she's religious and she's demonizing those things. One thing that I've noticed with women, a lot of what drives them to be that woman of God is usually to win a man. It's usually to gain that man, to get their husband. And I've noticed it so much. Once they reach a certain age, it's like, all right, let me start showing up this way so that way I can be picked and I can get my man. And of course, it's not to say that that's the sole reason why certain people are making these shifts when it comes to just their religious beliefs, but I'm just saying that it's something so common that I'm noticing. And then also within this past year, so many influencers are now shifting into being Christian influencers. And it's just like, what is your intention behind doing it? Because some of them is giving grift, is giving, well, this is trending, so let me hop on this trend. And now all of a sudden everything is, oh, do my makeup with me as a Christian. It becomes their whole identity versus just something that's their belief system. People are making religion their identity without having an identity outside of it. It's like everything is just that label and that's all they're taking on, and their whole life is just that. And I don't know, like I can't really say if it's healthy or not healthy, because if it works for some people then it does, but it just kind of feels like, you know, there's more to life than just your belief system. You know what I'm saying? Like it's great to have a strong belief system, but are you still evolving as a person, or are you keeping yourself boxed in? And back to the whole crystals thing, people are like, oh, that's demonic, and how, you know, like it's not of God. How can you guys say that when crystals are from the earth? People are then saying like, oh, people are worshiping crystals, and it's not that they're worshiping crystals, it's that they're using it as a tool of healing, of connecting. Like for example, in the Islamic religion, People travel to go see the black stone that's in Kaaba because they believe that with touching it will serve the intention of taking away their sins. So it's like, y'all don't demonize that, but yet y'all call crystals demonic. Like, to me, it just doesn't make sense. It's literally created by the earth, by God, and people just use it as a tool. And then B.Simone is talking about, oh, y'all carrying around herbs and how that's demonic. How are herbs demonic? It's literally plants that grow from the earth. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me at all. Y'all don't drink tea or something? I love me some herbal and green tea. Why? Herbs are healing for your body. Herbs are medicine. And the crazy thing is, like, how do y'all demonize herbs, but y'all will go pop some medicine if y'all need it? Like, I would trust an herbalist quicker than I would trust Big Pharma, because Big Pharma is pumping y'all with mad chemicals with the intention to keep us reliant on them, because y'all have to understand that this world, this matrix that we live in, they want to keep us so tapped out and so out of touch with nature because they benefit from it. They're making big bank off of our ignorance. Like, if you ever look at, I think it's Walgreens, if you look at their logo, it literally has a plant on it. All right, like, we can literally heal ourselves from the inside out with the foods that we eat and the herbs that we take, just like our ancestors did. But if we as the people were connected to herbs now, you think Big Pharma and the US corporation is going to be making money? No, because they're relying on our ignorance. So for y'all to say herbs are demonic is just absolutely crazy to me. Because if you say sage is demonic, right, then that also means rosemary is demonic, right? Does that then mean parsley and cilantro is demonic? Like, come on, y'all. Like, and then y'all say astrology is demonic, but during slavery, ancestors used the star as guidance for freedom. I bet if y'all was in that position and that star was there as guidance, you're not going to be like, oh, that's demonic. Like, no, y'all are going to follow that star because it's there for a reason. Like, again, it's on this earth, meaning it's natural. You get what I'm saying? And then she's saying put down the herbs, but give her the blood. She wants the blood. Like, the blood of a sacrifice. Like, you want the blood of a sacrifice, yet you don't think that's a little like off, but you scared of herbs. Like, the math is not math. And then my thing also is, y'all worship and pray to Jesus, but y'all have a hard time extending gratitude in your prayers to your family and your ancestors who passed away. So you telling me what? That's demonic too. So if your mom were to pass away, you're telling me it would be demonic if you included her in your prayers because you're not supposed to talk to your ancestor? Like, she would then be considered your ancestor. And then y'all say a person who has their own altar that they pray to is demonic, but yet y'all go to church where y'all pray to an altar, right? The same church that has candles lit on that altar that you're praying to, right? Yet for some reason y'all find burning candles to be demonic, but then when a person dies, y'all light candles, right? And then when it's weddings or funerals or just naming ceremonies or certain religious ceremonies, Jewish ceremonies, Kwanzaa, and Hindus during Diwali, is all of that considered demonic as well? Because I thought you guys were lighting candles with the intention of honoring someone, which goes into what I was saying. It's your intention behind why you're doing something that determines whether it's good or bad. But people just like to throw out, oh, if you do this, then it's bad, when it's like, what's your intention behind it? And then you can from there discuss whether it's good or bad. And then also another thing, I feel like people need to understand that, like, just because something is called one thing in one way doesn't mean it's not the same thing when it's said a different way. So when people talk about manifesting, praying, wishing, vision boards, that is literally all prayer with the intention to see something that you desire to come into fruition. So when people try to say like, oh, if you're manifesting, that's demonic, you need to be praying, it's all the same thing. You are putting a thought out of something that you want to see come to life. But again, people have a problem with wording when it's like, if you really sit down to critically think, you're saying the same thing just in a different word. Like, then another example is cursing, speaking over someone, bad mouthing, and gossiping. You are using words. Those are literally all verbal word spells. Words hold energy and are powerful. They can hold significant weight, both positive and negative. That's why it's so important to be intentional about how you use your words and what you say. So when a person speaks ill over your life, you should be praying against that and rebuke it over your life, because you don't want to come into agreement with that. And this book, The 4 Agreements, talks about that, and I think this is such a great read. I literally feel like every every human being on this earth should read this book, because it talks about words and the energy that it projects. Because when you believe something, whether you subconsciously or consciously intend on it, your mind is going to process that. So when you hear things, you can either come into agreement with it intentionally or unintentionally, but you also have the power to come against it by using your words to counter that, because then you're now overriding what you heard in your mind to believe what you're now saying. You know what I'm saying? And then another example is you have spelling, writing, scripting, and journaling. Those are all written spells. Like, manifestation journals are just you writing down your intention. It's the same thing as you speaking something over your life, but you're just writing it down. Just like words hold power, you are just projecting that energy, but in written form, so it still holds weight. And to just give a little more perspective, I'm gonna just give like a brief pros and cons list of just the differences between spirituality and religion, just to kind of put things into like more perspective based off of just my experiences, but also just a commonality that I've noticed amongst people. So when it comes to like the general differences between spirituality and religion, I feel like spirituality allows you to be open-minded as you discover the truth, and I feel like it actually encourages you to ask questions. You know, like, you're not demonized for asking questions, because at the end of the day, it's really all about just understanding from a genuine place. And then I feel like when it comes to religion, it keeps you rigid. Like, they tell you what's true and what's false, and they don't really encourage questions. Like like if you ask questions in a religious setting, they will make it seem like you're doing something so wrong. If you were to ask questions that challenges their beliefs, they will make it seem like, why are you asking all these questions? Or they will feel offended, when it's like in spirituality, there is no offense to a person asking a question to really get an understanding of knowing. But when it comes to religion, it's just like, listen, we're telling you what's true, we're telling you what's false, and you just have to take it or leave it, whether you believe it, whether it makes sense to you or not. And I feel like that's personally the problem that I have with religion. And my problem with that is that things are made to be definite. Like, it is what it is. But it's like, who's to say that what's true is true and what's false is false? We weren't there in history, and let's be honest, a lot of things have been tampered with. A lot of things are said to have happened a certain way, but it didn't really happen that way. And y'all know the whole telephone game where one person starts with information, and as they spread the information and word gets out, along the line of the story being told, things are manipulated, things are altered. So how can you then say that certain things are fact when sometimes things don't be making sense? Or we even know that when it comes to history, there are countless examples where religious texts are tampered with because they are trying to hide things, or they want to paint things a certain way because it benefits another religious group to make them look like they're more superior than another group. So that's really like the main issue that I have, because it's like with history, unless we went back in the day to really know, like, how can you really take a person's word for something and say like, all right, yeah, this is true, you know? Versus spirituality, there is no definites there. So now to get into the pros and cons, I'm going to start off with spirituality. So for me personally, I feel like spirituality allows you to feel free, and it taught me how to love God through love and through myself while connecting to God, because God is always with me. And I feel like it's also helped me learn to be super grateful, to be grateful for like the little things, but also understanding that we're all connected even through our differences. So there isn't this level of judgment or discrimination or feeling like, oh, you don't belong because of this reason. Like, I genuinely feel like it inspires acceptance and just understanding, and there isn't this like ego there of trying to discriminate someone because they're not the same as you, or there aren't these rules where, of course, like, there are just general spiritual laws and universal laws, but I feel like it mainly focuses on just being a good person without this pressure of having to fit into a certain mold because of what other people expect of you. It just feels free and it feels natural. It doesn't feel like I'm forcing anything. It doesn't feel like I'm trying to be something I'm not, or I have to fit into a mold that's expected to me to fit. The reality is everything is not a one size fits all, and I feel like spirituality allows that flexibility to really operate in your authentic self. and be as you are, show up as you are, but of course like work towards evolving and learning your life lessons and just really experiencing life for what it is while you're here. And yeah, and when it comes to the cons of spirituality, I can't really say I have a con with spirituality, but more so how it's being practiced. So one thing that I've noticed is like people treat spirituality as a way to only manifest the things that they want, typically material goods or, you know, things of the world. And that's not what spirituality is. It's not just you feeling like, oh, well, I'm going to manifest this thing, I'm going to manifest this particular item, this particular lifestyle, and that's all it's about, when it's like that's not all it's about. And to me, I kind of feel like when you're operating from that space, you're not really connecting with God, because I kind of look at it from the mindset of like you're just having your hand out expecting things to just happen for you, but you're not in flow, and it's not this give and take, you know, like you do and you earn and you give and you get back. That's what it's all about. But if you're just there with your hand out like, okay, I'm here because this is what I want and I expect to get everything checked off of my list, like that's not how it's gonna work. But also I feel like spirituality can be dangerous if you don't have a sense of a relationship with God and you don't understand that God is, you know, like the number one main source. I feel like it's very easy for you to come into spirituality and be misled, because again, there's good and there's bad, and it's easy to get sucked into the bad if you don't have discernment of what's bad and what's good. You get what I'm saying? Basically what I'm trying to say is, if you're struggling in your just general foundation of knowing that there is God, I feel like it'll be real easy for you to get caught up in these spiritual streets. And trust me, it can get real ghetto out here. I feel like people who lack discernment, you will be easier to manipulate. And manipulation is not of God, and God is not the author of confusion. So if you don't already have a foundation, it can get real easy for you to get tricked up out here. And sometimes when I see people come into spirituality and then they leave demonizing and they run back to religion, I feel like those are people who are possible victims of these ghetto spiritual streets, because they took a path that they shouldn't have took, messing with the wrong people, and they saw that there is a side to spirituality that's not the best side, so that scared them off. And like I said, there is good and bad in everything. But if you are consciously aware and just discerning, then you know what to stay away from and what is safe for you to practice and what's safe for you to show up. And when it comes to the pros of religion, I think religion does serve a purpose. It's the foundation to a lot of people's knowing of God and a higher source to begin with. And then from there, you can either continue to go down that route, or you can verge off into, let's say, spirituality with a higher level of understanding. Religion also does serve a purpose because it does keep people in line. Like, there are people who rely on that accountability of religion in order to stay upright, in order to do the right thing. So it's like, it's good that religion is there, because if a person decide like, oh, I want to go off somebody, they have in the back of their mind, like their consciousness will always check them to basically keep them in line of, you know what, I have something that is a higher source, and you know, I know it's a wrong thing to do, so I'm not going to do that. So although a lot of religion is manipulated, I still do feel like it does serve a purpose in just building that foundational knowledge. And one thing that I would definitely say I notice is that people who tend to not have a relationship with God, or don't believe that there isn't a God, they really be the most unhinged people. Like, they be feeling like they're untouchable, because in their mind, they don't connect to something of a higher source that is holding them accountable, or they don't believe that there are any consequences to their actions. But if you're a person who believes in God, you know, like, all right, in the back of your head, damn, if I do this, then I know God is watching me. You get what I'm saying? But people who don't believe in God, honestly, those are like the scariest people to me, because it's like, if you don't believe in God, then to me, I feel like, what's stopping you from, you know, doing things that you shouldn't be doing? And like I said, those tend to be the most unhinged people. Of course, I'm not trying to stereotype or project onto people who may not believe in God, because there may be people out here who don't believe in God and they're not evil people, but then again, I've never personally experienced a person like that, so I can't really speak for that. But the people that I do have knowledge of that don't believe in God or don't really have a connection with God, they really be the most evil people. And then I would say the cons to religion are there are a lot of people who are like NPCs, so like they're just following the religion but they're not really connected. And I feel like a lot of people also don't really acknowledge, and I feel like now people are acknowledging it. There are so many people that are traumatized by religion and their foundation of it, knowingly and unknowingly, which goes into what I was saying. Like, there are a lot of people who follow religion because that's what's expected of them, or because they felt forced into doing it or pressured by their family to uphold a certain standard, when they don't really have that true connection, but because they don't want to be like the black sheep, or because they don't want to not fit in, or because they don't want to be demonized, they just blend in and just accept their fate where they are without really having like that genuine connection. So I feel like that's like one con when it comes to religion. But also, one thing that I would say I noticed, especially when I was growing up as a kid, like a lot of my peers will always talk about just their relationship to God and the religion. And when they would talk about like when they would go to like prayer school and stuff like that, the stories that I'll be hearing, like I used to think my parents, I never told them because I'm like, let me not provoke them to think like I'm some demonic child for not wanting to go. But I used to be so grateful my parents didn't send me to like Arabic school, because the stories that I'll be hearing about people getting abused and just getting beat on if they don't remember something or they don't memorize something, a lot of people are traumatized from those experiences. So for me, how I look at it, it's like, how is that healthy? How is that foundation to building your relationship with God healthy? You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm in Arabic school and if I can't recite something, I'm only learning to memorize the words so that I'm not getting beat, but not because I actually took the time out to understand what the words are enough to memorize it. You get what I'm saying? So I feel like there's a lot of people like that. There's a lot of people that can recite a Quran, but it's like, is your connection really there, or do you just memorize it because you were forced to memorize it? And honestly, that's a whole nother discussion that I want to have, but I'm just still trying to figure out the right way to go about that conversation, because again, like, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm not trying to paint any religion out to be like a bad religion, because again, I don't think the purpose of religion is bad, but the way that people go about it is the problem that I have, along with also history and things like that. And to go back to the statement that I made when I say I don't understand how. So say when it comes to religion, I feel like there are a lot of people pleasers because people fear judgment. But I also feel like people are oftentimes accepting of behavior from others without really like holding them accountable, because they feel like, oh, well, this person has this status or they're this person to me, so I just have to accept anything. Or they tend to make excuses for the person without really seeing them for who they are, when it's just like, you should always view people as people first and then see them for the spirit that they carry, not for the title that they have. And I feel like there's a lot of people that don't really view life in that way, which I feel like if people were to start viewing life that way, it would make interacting with people so much easier, because you will know how to protect yourself. You will know who to be around and who not to be around. You will be able to read past people's projections without having rose-colored glasses on, because you are reading the spirit and the energy and the vibe behind the person and not just what they're presenting to you. So I say all of that to say, like, I think it's really important that people do themselves a service and just really learn about history and learn about the spiritual aspects to life, because I promise y'all, like, it's really all connected. And for me personally, especially growing up from a Muslim background, I feel like I always steered away from spirituality because I felt like it was demonized, because I felt like it wasn't the right thing, or I felt like, oh, people are gonna make it seem like I'm into this, when it's like, no, like, spirituality has been my route of genuinely connecting with God through love and not through fear. Like, I feel like I really got to know God and connect with God through spirituality, because I learned through myself, through loving myself, respecting myself. And like I said, the reality is, like, we have God within us. Like, you don't need to go to a certain location or be doing a certain thing in order for you to connect with God. Like, you can connect with God in all times, you know, like if you're on the train, if you're in your house, if you're in the bathroom, you can connect with God through your sleep. Like, when it comes to connecting with God, I just feel like there shouldn't be any limits put on it, because there aren't any limits on it. Like, you can connect with God at all times because God is with you at all times. Like I said, you don't need to go to a specific location. You don't need to be doing a certain thing. You are not better of a person because you got to go visit a location, and you're not going to go to hell because you haven't visited a certain location. You know, when people put these hierarchies of what makes you a better religious person by doing certain things, to me it's just like, listen, like, as long as you are connecting with God, so it would honestly be of your best interest to really learn about the spiritual aspect of life, but also really take time out to go and do a deep dive on history and understand how a lot of history has been manipulated with the intention to control and oppress us. Like, a lot of our beliefs are far more connected than I feel like people really understand. And I also feel like when it comes to the whole idea of religion, like, if one area in the Middle East has this particular religion and they speak a certain language, and then you go to another area in the world and they have a different religion with a different language, that is all purposeful because the people in that area were all able to connect. If you think about it, if you took religion that was in this area and tried to bring it to this area, how does that group of people resonate with that religion and they don't understand the language? I just feel like if you think about things from a space of like critical thinking, but also just again with history and all of that, it will actually have you asking questions that will make sense. Like, you're not going to just follow something because that's what you were told to follow. But you know, everyone does what they want to do. At the end of the day, like, if you are comfortable in your belief system, that is all that matters. If you are connecting with God, that is all that matters. The goal is for us all to evolve into the best versions of ourselves, to really connect with God. You are the one who puts power into your beliefs, and your faith is what drives you to move forward. The real purpose is self-discovery. It's doing the deep internal work in order to connect with your higher self to become the best version of yourself. Whether it's through religion or whether it's through spirituality or whatever tools you decide to use, that shouldn't be the focus. As long as you're being authentic and operating out of integrity, that is literally all that should matter. Because at the end of the day, everyone literally has their own testimony. So who are you to say another person's testimony is not right or it's not correct? Like, listen, just remain upright and stop being so damn judgmental. If one person takes this path and one person takes this path and another person takes this path and we all end up in the same place, that is literally all that should matter. We have so many things in this world to be focused on than to be divided based off of beliefs when we all believe in God. Like, it's just, come on, y'all. Let's not make this journey difficult for each other. Let's just focus on ourselves and show up in our best ways, and maybe you can be an inspiration to someone. And if they choose to adapt what you believe in, then cool. And if they choose to go their own path, then cool. But you are not to say what a person should believe and what they shouldn't believe. I just feel like it's not your place, and it just doesn't make sense to demonize another group because it's not what you believe. Again, what makes you believe that yours is the only one and correct way when other people also feel like theirs is correct as well? Like, these are thoughts that I feel like you should really start to have and really ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions. But anyways, thank you for watching this video, and please comment your thoughts and opinions below, and please be respectful because I was playing it real safe.